I've been meaning to make a trivia show for a long time because I thought even when I was a kid that it would be neat to try and identify which Mega Man song this is or whatever, because that's a big just that one franchise was very appealing to me. So that was what I was thinking about back then. But I think it was Sartek or somebody like that did a Jeopardy hack where they changed all the NES answers to gibberish, and then they changed the questions. I guess that's I have that backwards. They changed the answers, the hints on screen. They edited the game to show the hints, and then they had gibberish answers, and then they would play it over the mic, and they would just choose if it was correct or not when the players answered it, and they had like a crowd themed trivia around. So I wanted to do that, which I have. That was easy to achieve.
Yeah.
And I already had the system because we had done game races, and I had moved it to live streaming. So probably before anybody else 10 years ago, I was doing those live, just 5 people racing a game on the fly with my system. So integrating video games in with the trivia show was really easy for me in terms of tech. It was already done. So I just kind of did them both at the same time.
So the show is on Twitch. I end up watching it on YouTube afterwards, but it's live on Twitch, right? So
Eventually, it's on YouTube. I try to get
yeah,
on it, but sometimes I have like 6 weeks worth of backup to do, like now.
yeah. Well, that's okay. When they drop, that's more for me to watch.
Yeah.
No, so the show being done live on Twitch, how does that affect the design of the game, the how the thing flows?
There's no room for editing, really, like, because of that. Like, if it were a show in post, I guess I could do longer challenges and just skip over the parts that are interesting or something, but, I don't really have that. And because it's live, I also have the advantage of having a live audience. I can use them. I do use them for voting and stuff sometimes.
Yeah,
I like to try to get the audience in on things, so pretty slim amount of events I can do that with, but I do it when I can. Then I
yeah.
also have to watch out for cheating and stuff, which hasn't ever been a problem, but is a live stream concern.
Okay, that makes sense.
If I can,
So
insert a question here. So like you recently, or again, we're watching them on YouTube, so maybe not so recently from your point of view, but you recently made a change from banning the audience from guessing on certain challenges to allowing that, and I guess just asking the competitors not to look at chat.
Yeah,
What motivated that change?
that's just the oversight on my part. Probably never should have been enforcing. So that's been responsible for more timeouts on my channel than anything. I moved to GDQ for a couple Wednesday shows, and they didn't like me not letting them guess, and I'm like, that makes sense. You guys are right. Like they didn't really care. They were just like, "Is there a reason why you don't want that?" And I'm like, "I guess there's not." You had so we just immediately stopped doing it.
Okay, yeah, that
uh,
makes a lot of sense. I will say I missed the happy little skull animations threatening the audience. I did think those were delightful.
Those came from a Quizzler thing that we had. I mean, it makes sense to me logically to not let the audience guess, just because that seems like an easy way to stop cheating. But effectively moderating that is a nightmare, especially with a bigger crowd like GDQ had. For them, it would be even worse. For me, it's like 500 to 1,000 viewers usually tops. So I can manage that, I guess, but we really shouldn't be. But we did have I've pretty much done every single thing on the wheel by itself at some point or another, and quiz is an easy, big one. So I have like NES animation style avatars, and the skeleton was one of them.
so with the GDQ, did they just approach you and say, "Hey, do you want to do a version of the show?"
Hotfix is a thing GDQ does where you would send in an application, I think, for a
Okay.
show. They do that kind of stuff. Like that's I'm not the only one in on that. I don't know
Yeah.
the details about that,
Okay.
but I did apply for it just like everyone else did. There's a form for would you like to try out for hotfix somewhere? I'm not sure where it is.
And the show also had a run on Giant Bomb as well, right? Back when that was.
Yeah, they actually just hosted me a minute ago. We did work with them. I had a friend, no longer with them, but she was working with them at the time. Kind of was my contact for that, but I got to meet all those people, and we worked together and decided it was a good fit. We had a trial run as like they were doing an event, and thought maybe my show would be a good fit for that. And since it was, then we pursued maybe working together a bit more.
Okay.
Can I again? Did you see when you did the Giant Bomb stuff and then stopped doing the Giant Bomb? Did you see like any audience pickup from that? Like, did you gain people from Giant Bomb who seemed to have stuck with it, or was there not like a meaningful change in the audience size?
I definitely have gotten people from GDQ and Giant Bomb in person and in regular live streams. I've met people at panels who have told me that's where they're from.
Okay.
So what? So you mentioned that because it's live, you can't have like really long challenges. You want to keep it like it's usually like 2 or 3 minutes, I think. What? So what are you looking for when you're making a game challenge or evaluating one for like what is a good game challenge for Arcade Pet? And are there games that I imagine there are games that probably wouldn't be a great fit for it?
For game challenges, I am looking for very specific things. Yeah, it's a hard one. Like I use crowdfunding content was the idea behind my show from the beginning, but when it came to game challenges, there's a lot of problems. There's a lot of problems with all of it. I have like 6 databases, and each one is their own headache. A game's is absolutely the worst one. It takes forever. There's software concerns. I have to get all these things together. So just even if I like the content someone wants to make, I have to work with them. Like personally, I have to do it, or it's not going to be able to be used because I have to make sure it works at all.
Yeah.
And then the game itself, I like them to be short challenges that are easy to pick up. Fighting games, we have a couple. They're kind of on the wall for me because those are really hard. But people who pick it theoretically should know how to play them, so that helps a little bit. But things like Mario Brothers are way easier to pick up than some of those harder games are. Like no one's going to beat Battletoads on the first try without some help. So we try to make those way easier at least. We're trying to do like Aria Sorrow right now, and those are just going to have to be very specifically tailored because that's such a wide game. We don't have Metroid because of that. Metroid seems like a game you would use on a show, but it ends up just being, can you wall jump off this? And no, I'm not really wanting them to do that, so it's just a bad game for this. And there's not a good boss, actually. I hate to disappoint the Metroid fans, but Super Metroid doesn't have a single good boss in it anywhere for this.
So how does the board work? Are all of the spaces on the board like generated at the beginning of a game, or is there
the map?
Or is it, yeah, the map. Yeah.
It's truly random. I don't even know what the tiles are, but they are generated before we start, and there's a little bit of logic to it. A lot of people did notice eventually, and I let it out of the bag that the game cannot end before like 13 or 14 moves at least, like just as a rule, because that's boring. So there's like a hidden, like, we won't even generate the exit until then, and then the exit will replace one of the lesser valuable tiles probably, but maybe not. Maybe if there's nothing but good stuff left, it'll delete like a doubler or something. Generally speaking, my map rules are tuned. I over time added the dice and the doubler things and some other stuff, and there's supposed to be a set number of those. People are always wondering about the Snailser math, and that is its own beast that kind of throws a wrench in everything. And in my terms as well, it's kind of random. There's no, it could be 0 to 4 for that guy.
I like it when it's 4.
That one really messes things up. Yeah, I didn't want more than 4. There's a hard cap of 4 usually. I've undone it before and determined that if we do that, it's kind of a mess. It also removes the chance of like seeing trivia at all. Sure, sometimes just like I don't really want that. As chaotic and random as my show seems, and unfair too, sometimes I do have balance ideas on all my decisions.
Okay. Yeah. Um. So like how do you how do you balance something like a challenge from like the Snailser wheel? Like how do you determine what is a fair or unfair, or how unfair is too unfair?
Losing your turn isn't the end of the world. Taking points is kind of mean. I try to balance it around the points that it's worth. Like 20 or 30 points is a pretty generic amount of points for you to get on a go, and because of the design rules, you can never have it be like double value like the other ones are. So it's just very basic, just 20 or 30 points. Like that's the best you can get on those. They're definitely meant to be meaner, and people succeed at them still, so they're not super unbreakable, but they are supposed to be. You better be really good at this to win kind of challenges. Mostly they're pranks also.
Yeah.
Uh,
That's right.
One of the things that makes it a live show appeal is I care more about what the audience thinks than the players. So there's that. And the players, so they might end up with something super unfair, but the audience doesn't really like that. They like to see somebody win against something gross. And so I try to make that happen when I can. The other thing they like is to know the answer to trivia that the players don't. Like music. One time I played Duck Hunt for somebody. I don't want to name names, but they didn't know the Duck Hunt theme. And that's exactly what I'm looking for the sound test trivia is the most identifiable piece of music on earth, and the four players playing don't know what it is. You just make 600 people in the audience mad, and that's the good stuff.
Does that also apply to stuff like the screen crap? You don't want them too obscure. You want them something that.
Yeah, I'm not really looking for the DOS games and stuff. When I moderate, if it's an indie game, I immediately look it up on Steam and see if it has like 1,000 reviews. If it doesn't meet like a couple standard numbers, I don't keep it. And if it's like the toe of a frog in Mario Odyssey or something, I don't usually use that either. Like it's a little too far out the deep end.
The scrambled version of the screen crap. Now, do you just run that through some kind of program or code, or is that done? Are you choosing them to be like? Is it the same pool as the standard screen crap, or?
I made those myself. One of those Snailser problems is content. It's kind of hard to make.
Okay. Yeah.
I could automate it somehow, probably pretty easily, but it ends up being some images just don't work. And then I see that when I make them. And the Quizundrum stuff is way worse for making content. We have been working on scripts and stuff to generate those faster, because those were like the highest effort jokes I could make, and they wore me out. I spend like hours on some of them, and then I use them in an instant, and then I ran out. And everyone likes that event the most because of that, because it's a big goof. It's one of the things that just I can't keep doing at that rate. I need to find a faster solution. But as I added more to that wheel, it became less common to see it, at least.
Yeah. So when did the Snailser wheel become part of the show? Because it wasn't there at the start. The snail wheel.
No. Not that long ago, really. The show was starting to get a little stale for me, and that was something it needed to keep me interested in it. But more than that, I was trying to do every year this like big idiot project of like, we called it April Fool's, Easter, something like that. Around that time of year, 2016 or 17, I did a joke one where we were just super mean to the players and nothing was fair at all. We would give 1,000 points, and those episodes are my favorite. There's 3 of them, and each one is like worse than the last. And the last one is where the like test your Smight, I died image came from and all that stuff. because I set up this like fight where I'm like fighting Dictator in some game, and they're supposed to bet on me or not, and there's no way I could win that. Like just on the side here, I'm not good at fighting games, so there was like impossible fight. It was the most impossible thing. So I got crushed, and they lost all their points, and then we played that video. And I end up using a lot of the assets from those because we spend so much time on them. It's why we don't do them anymore. It was like a collaborative effort of like me and 10 of my friends and hundreds of hours. And I like to grind until the last minute. So up until the day we did it, I was working on that. And it was great. It was one of my best shows. But I didn't have anything the year after that. Like that's I think it was 2019 or whatever. It's pinned in my channel as the main video, but it is my favorite April Fool's one. That's the last one we did, and it kind of like was hard to top. I really hit everything with that one, so like we did Snailser the next year instead because I didn't have anything. And then the year after that, I think we did like a Mario Party kind of quick map thing. This year we did Halloween, which was
Yes.
elaborate.
Yeah, it seemed like a lot went into the Halloween episode.
Yeah, nowhere near as much as the April Fool's stuff, but it was that kind of level of content. If you haven't seen the April Fool's ones, boy howdy, those are something else.
I've seen a couple of them. I'm still working through that. There's a lot of how many it's been every week for 9 years, and then just how many shows have you done?
We used to do 2 every Sunday. I toned it down because I knew that I recognized pretty early that this project is going to be what I'm popular for. Every Sunday I'd get like 600 viewers, and then every other day of the week I'd have like 80. And that hasn't really changed much. The viewership somehow stayed around 500 to 600, and then I get maybe 200 viewers on the normal days now, so that's better. But I recognize that if I burn this out, I'm not going to have any audience anymore. And I didn't want to burn that out anyway. It's hard to get players every week though, and I noticed after a couple years that I hadn't missed a single Sunday by pure chance, even though the internet had been bad sometimes. One time I had to drive. We just moved, and Comcast laughed at me and told me the internet wasn't coming this weekend, so I had to drive to a friend's house and set up in their living room and do like the lowest bandwidth show, but we still did it. So it's been 9 years plus a couple months now that we haven't missed.
Wow, that's I don't think I could do anything that regularly for that long. That's really quite an achievement.
Yeah, it's very impressive. And before we move too far from it, I do want to say the amount of effort that has gone into those April Fool's episodes is extremely obvious from the outside. Like watching it, first of all, they absolutely are a delight, and secondly, it is so clear that like this is a labor of love from like a big crew of people. Yeah, they're just wonderful to watch.
Thanks. Me and Maddie do most of it. I have a really long credit sequence. Have all the people involved in that, and I couldn't do it without the programmers for sure. Orinthios is a big one, and Drastic Actions built the entirety of the UI for like the quiz stuff and stuff. I'm still using the backbone of that. Orinthios is the one who still does almost all the programming these days for new stuff. So they were there making like the Waluigi stuff pop out and all that, the map, all that weird stuff. And Maddie was doing so much art and animations. He's kind of moved on from that, which is another reason why it's hard to do April Fool's stuff. I don't really want to do it without Maddie. So as long as Maddie doesn't feel like drawing the art, I don't feel like doing those. It was a team, me and him kind of doing the comedy together. Most of the jokes are ours. Despite what the credits might say, it really was mostly just him and me working on all that stuff with some help from like Nawalk and them here and there, which I appreciated a lot. But I really burned Maddie out to really use that resource up. And I put in so many hours on my own just grinding through it and not sleeping. I cannot create unless I have a deadline that's like next week, and I haven't even started it yet. That's the kind of deadline I need to be able to do anything. And that's not good for me, but that's the way it is. That's how all those were gotten made at the end.
So the Gambler used to have like a betting element, right? at the early you would bet points, wager
Yeah, that's
points?
straight out of Nick Arcade, which we were watching. That was
Okay.
another aspect of creating the show and the theming around it. We watched some Nick Arcade when I was a kid and I loved it, but we were watching it in Discord in like 2014 and making fun of how silly it was because it was a pretty rotten show for any like he's just like asking them like what's the newest Depeche Mode album and stuff for trivia, and then he has them like doing nonsense like identifying scrambled eggs in a picture and stuff. And then he would do the part where they actually play games sometimes. I get it's supposed to be an educational show, and but he would wheel out arcades cabinets like ActRaiser would be there, and they'd ask one of the players to play, and the other one would write down a number for the bet, and that makes sense, I guess, sort of, not really. I couldn't think of a good gameplay reason to justify that, and ultimately what it did was people would just waffle forever on the bets, and I just decided to just assign random points to it. I need to rename Gambler to Game Wall at some point. It's a little too late to do it now, but I might. The only problem is the only thing really that has stopped me from doing that is because I have that cool slot machine animation, and it won't make any sense then.
Yeah, Nick Arcade is a really like a bizarre nightmare of a show, and
Yeah.
it's very clear that even like the video game parts of it are kind of like set up by people who don't really know or care about video games, because the challenges are really bizarre sometimes. Like they'll drop you in the middle of a Sonic level and be like, get 30,000 points. And even people who are good at Sonic the Hedgehog, like, I don't know how you score points. Like, what are the things you do to maximize score?
He has no advice, and he gives you 10 seconds because it's a very short show. Then he drops them into virtual reality. They never understand how to play. Phil Moore is the name of the host. I met him when he was at MagFest doing. They have a show called Versus there, where it's very, very well funded. It's as good as Nick Arcade probably was in funding. They have stage presence. He's there hosting it. They have some celebrity guests, and then they have a virtual reality thing with modern VR at the end that they do. There's not a whole lot of shows like mine on Twitch that I can look at for any kind of input at all. But as far as panels go, there's Proton Johns and there's that I could look at and learn a couple things from and bounce ideas off of. So I went to that. I met him. He was looking like he was talking about launching a revamp of that show someday, and he's got the TV connections, being a former TV host and all. I don't know if he did that or not.
Yeah. So
I think
Oh, go ahead.
that one thing I can remember seeing at one of those panels that I'm like, I should also do that, was they had 6 indie games that they were choosing, like my game wall. They just put up 6 indie games to play, and they had animations for them. So instead of just having the name of the game up on the TV screen, as nice as that looked, it was good, crisp test. I went home, and in 2 weeks we had created 400 little images for our TVs to demo, which really made that scene look a lot better. If you go back to the first maybe year or two of Arcade Pit, you'll see it's just static text on the TVs.
Yeah.
The question I was about to ask is, are those captured by hand, or do you generate those like algorithmically, having a machine play the game or something? But as soon as I started to say it, it's like ridiculous. Like those have to be hand captured, right?
Yeah, we went in and made our movies and clipped them together, and I edit the resulting image to be nice looking. I add fades and I add the title for a while.
That seems like a tremendous amount of work.
It was at first to get all of them done, because I did have 200 games or something to start with. So we did that, but now I have to, if I have a new game entry, that's one of the steps that's just required. Like I'm gonna have to do it for Dawn of Sorrow here, or Aria of Sorrow, because we are adding that game. So I'm gonna have to go through Castlevania and make that image.
Okay. Are there games that, over time you've dropped from the rotation, or do you just keep adding?
Yeah, I dropped some stinkers. The ones no one ever picks, the ones everyone always loses forever. One of them, there's probably been like 6 Mega Man hacks. I don't know why people struggle with those ones so much. I picked some really easy ones, and nevertheless, they continued to fail. There's one where it's a bunch of user-made maps, and you have all the weapons, and you just randomly get some levels to go clear, and it measures how far you get, and it seems like the perfect thing for my show, but no one ever makes it anywhere. They don't use any of the weapons, they just die. So I took that one out. I might try to use it again someday, though. And then I really like the Shin Niketsu Kunio games, but that's River City Ransom's boys, for the record, and Super Dodgeball and those. That whole game, Crash and the Boys, that set of games. They have a whole bunch of hard Japanese games, and I have the translations for them. No one really seems to understand those ones either, and I get it. They're kind of strange. Like, I might have to cut Super Dodgeball. I hate to do it, but it's that one's a little out there for people to pick up and play. It would be easier to play like Tecmo Super Football or something for them.
So you mentioned that a lot of your decision making is driven by what the audience thinks rather than by what the players think. Do you think that there is value in keeping around a game where like the players are always struggling if it's just like the audience has a good time watching them suffer in this weird challenge? Because like I would say, I don't want to speak for like, I don't want to pretend I speak for everybody, but like for me, Super Dodgeball is a really good example of one where I get excited when people pick it, because either they know how to play it and they're going to do some like wild shit, or they don't know how to play it and it's going to be like a total bizarre meltdown. And those are both fun.
Yeah, I think if they actually do something with it, I enjoy it. I've just I don't like it when they burn 3 minutes and they don't get anything done at all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that makes sense. The one that seems really hard, which I never played back in the day, is the rollerblading one.
The roller game sucks a lot, but it's just a platformer. It just feels bad. I don't have very many like janky games like that to even use, and if I do collect more, they might have their own category because they hit different. They're not all like, even Ghouls and Ghosts feels okay compared to roller games in terms of how you control and stuff. You're just on skates trying to move around.
Yeah.
It's also really mean. It doesn't want you to win. I don't know what's going on with that. Well, I can tell you something about trivia, because that's, if somebody's going to make a video game themed anything, it's almost certainly going to be trivia, the easiest to make. But I can warn you what's wrong with that. You have like 5 major problems that maybe aren't obvious right out the gate, especially if you're getting crowd submitted trivia. You have to make sure it's right. You have to care whether or not it's a spoiler. That's something you're going to have to make a choice on, and I don't bother with that one. You're also going to have to make sure it's interesting, which is an entirely different problem. You're going to have to make sure it's succinct and short and able to be read in the time limit you want and understood by the players. And all of those things are going to require some moderation. You're going to have to moderate it if you don't want swearing, or if you have a limitation on that, which I sure do, especially after we went with some other groups and it wasn't just on my channel anymore. So I have these 5 big concerns with we get so many questions in, and we just pour over them on our spare time. Basically, when I'm bored at night, I just go through 6 hours of trivia and see if it's any good. And if I don't know the game, I have to find somebody who does sometimes. I have a picture of some trivia from that Trivia Crack game that's on the phone. It was asking me what this animal is, and it was just a horse. That's what happens when you don't moderate your trivia.
Yeah, I had wanted to ask you something about spoiler content in particular. Like, do you have? You just implied that you kind of don't. But do you have like sort of a soft rule about accepting material for like games that are quite new for that reason, like screen craps or whatever, from more recent games?
I have some ethics drilled into me from the Something Awful's game LP forum, and one of them is no games under 6 months old to be LP'd, even though it's kind of silly. Like the new Zelda game, if you send in questions for that, I only now would start accepting them. I would just leave them on read until now, just because I don't like that very much. And then other than that, when people see a game get picked that they're worried about, they just shouldn't listen too close, I guess, because what do you expect? Honestly, is my thinking on trivia. If somebody's picking The Walking Dead and you're playing through it, then hey, don't look at this. That's all I got for that. That's how I would treat spoilers if somebody was talking about something I was watching.
Yeah, that makes sense.
There's not really any other way for me to do it because I can't really tell what a spoiler is or not. I mean, you can't really ask trivia about a game with a plot unless you just avoid the plot.
Yeah.
I actually appreciate that a lot of the questions are more about like what does this item do, that sort of thing.
We have a bunch of rules that I had written on arcadepit.net when people submit that they have to like quote unquote agree to. It's just a silly little checklist of things like no negative questions, which is like which of these is not in your inventory at the start of the game, something like that. And then it's just like a process of elimination question. I just think those are like badly formatted. So even things like that are in my list. And I do edit the questions and make them read better when I see something wrong with them. When a question is wrong, my co-host roasts me hard enough that I'm needing to make sure it's fixed. So I don't let that get through as much as I can.
Yeah, that makes sense. So the prompts for the drawing challenges, what are some of the kind of rules you look at for accepting those or not?
I get those out of a big list randomly on the fly, and if they're boring, I just delete them. If they don't sound like something that's reasonably drawn in 90 seconds, or if I don't think it's funny at all, its comedy value is more important to me than anything. It needs to be a character that they hopefully even know who it is without a reference, because someone's gonna have to guess what it is.
Yeah. And when you're doing the quad draw, the four segments, what do you look for in those kind of images?
I've opened a thread on my Discord for those,
Okay.
just to let people send them to me. This is a fast way to do it. What I'm looking for those is a nice square image with everyone having something to draw at all in them, each corner. Hopefully a fella. It's
Hopefully
ideally
a little fella.
Yeah, hopefully not just text. That's not what I want really. A big face, like one big Mario face is okay. So it's also, I guess, still something to draw. I'd find that the rosters for fighting games are very funny.
Yeah, those have been really good ones. How much, like, I think this is a really good example of this. It was something I intended to ask. How much do you find that like the culture of the show feeds back into the way that you shape the content? Like the sort of like the audience loves a funny little guy has sort of become like a very common comment when quad draw comes up. How much has that like changed the way you versus the way you used to source those images to the way you look for images for that now? Like,
I use results like that, which is true. The audience does seem to vote a certain way. I use information like that, and also there's two people who have been running stats for me, Anti-Aaron and Joe Gatorman. I never asked them to, but they do meticulous stats, and I have stats almost of every single game and every single challenge that has popped up and how people did. So I can open it up and I can see that Mega Man 3 is harder for everyone than on the other Mega Mans, and I can adjust things based on that. I don't like the show to be unapproachable. It was kind of like my inside, only my community will ever care about the show in the first year. And then when it started to pop off, I recognized pretty quick that people jumping into this are overwhelmed. They don't know what's going on. We don't read the rules out very well. There's been an ongoing war to tone my culture down enough that people understand what they're even looking at. For Giant Bomb and GDQ, I think Giant Bomb, we got rid of the custom bars because it's easier to understand without that on top of everything else.
Okay. I was wondering about that. Yeah.
Just makes it more approachable because you can jump in and see what the score is, and you don't know why one player has a car with Donkey Kong dying on the road and the other one's just got a regular scoreboard.
Yeah, as much fun as the scoreboard stuff is, and I really do love it. Like there are certain configurations that make it extremely hard to tell how many points they have.
Yeah, I normally don't care too much about that kind of chaos by the end of the game, but I do want people to understand the gist of what's going on. I've been meaning to add like a pop-up snail or something that tells the players what's going on, whose turn it is, what they're supposed to do next. I've added I used to do a fade out gray screen that would highlight the part of the board they're interacting with next, but now I just move to that part of the board, make it huge. I'm just giving it some direction. That was one of the first criticisms we got was Giant Bomb. I think the audience for Giant Bomb wasn't understanding. They loved the show right away, but they didn't really understand what was going on very well, and they criticized us, the hosts, for not telling what is happening very well. So we started working on it big time at that point.
Yeah, it's a pretty complicated machine especially compared to like the rules of a lot of game shows, and I imagine it has to be a real challenge to like combining the need to keep it like lively, to keep it moving, with also the need to keep things clear. Do you find that like pacing is a big problem, especially because you're not always in control? Like there are elements where you're like having the players make a decision on their team, like who's going to play this thing or which game do you want. And you sometimes with some teams you get a lot of waffling, a lot of I don't know, what do you think we should do? I don't know, what do you think we should do? Like how do you control that stuff and keep the show moving fast while also keeping it clear and comprehensible?
I've taken away some of their choice because they do mess around, especially with the wagering of points. Anytime they were doing that is gone now almost. The biggest choice they have to make usually is which game they're going to play or what question they want to pick. And I've thought about giving them more questions than 12, but that's only going to increase that problem. It's one of the reasons I didn't. I just got to make a show decision. My co-host, I have a couple of reasons for having a co-host at all, but she's really good at making them move and making them feel bad for taking forever as a bonus.
Yeah, I definitely find in my work as a board game designer that if I give someone 12 things to choose from or 20 things to choose from, it takes forever. Whereas if I give them like 2 or 3, well, now it's a lot tighter of a decision and there's less room to waffle. So like I think definitely there's a value in removing decisions from a player, narrowing it so that they can get it moving and keep moving with it.
Yeah, especially if the decision is worthless, like how many points they're betting is like, it's not that big a deal. Like they almost always ended up going for 25 or some generic middle number anyway.
Now,
So that was the worst one.
Now how are the points on the Gambler challenges, the game board challenges, determined for each game?
I recently increased them by a lot because I felt like it was undervalued to have to land on. That was always supposed to be a core part of the show, was playing games, winning points, and it felt like people would prefer to do the trivia or something because they could more easily get some value out of that, or even make other people play the games because they. I mean, I put that in because no one was picking the hard games, so I had another solution. We would just have a mark in my database for a game that was kind of hard or ridiculously hard and no one ever picks it. They would just get +5 or +10 points right out the gate on top of that. And it's marked that way. That's what the little badges are for. The rare badge and the super rare one are indicating that whatever that point value was randomly between like 20 and 40, it's now +10 on top of that. So that's how you get that +50 on the screen. It's a rare game that sucks and also randomly just happened to get a bunch of points on top of it. And that's where that number comes from. But at a minimum, the challenges should be pretty good there now.
Yeah.
Is there any element of, or have you ever considered doing a sort of thing where games that don't get picked sort of accumulate heat, so to speak? This is a very common mechanic in board games, where like when you have a variety of options laid out, the options that don't get picked accumulate like extra coins on them, some kind of extra value. So eventually, they're worth so much that even if they wouldn't normally get picked, somebody takes them because of the value. Like, have you considered having games or challenges that don't get picked very often sort of like accumulate additional value in the database over time? Or
There's some weight on the way we pick our challenges to begin with, and that's all we've got going on. That is to say, Mario Brothers 1 shows up way too much. When every single challenge in that pool has been seen once, and there's still games out there that haven't had that happen, it should have less priority than that set of games that haven't ever seen the light of day. And it doesn't mark them as seen until they've been chosen and played once, whether they win or lose.
Okay. Are there any games that, like, I assume, with the exception of stuff that you've added recently, everything has been chosen at least once? Is there a game that you're really hoping gets chosen sometime, or?
I can take a look. There's a lot of games in there that haven't had as much play as I would hope.
I mean, I'll tell you right now, she's talking about Rystar. She's always
No,
like,
no,
why aren't they
Rystar
playing
has-
Rystar?
I have seen Rystar get chosen a couple times. A lot of times it's not chosen. But I'm wondering more if there are games that just haven't.
Final Fight 1, Legend of the Mystical Ninja, Celeste and Super Castlevania have some fairly new stuff in them, and Tetris Game Boy is brand new. So those ones haven't ever seen any action yet. There's a lot of other ones that haven't, though, too. There's just a whole bunch of challenges for some of these games that haven't shown up yet, that haven't been, or they just were on screen and they didn't get picked. Gradius 3 has a bunch. Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 has been dodged severely. F-Zero is scary for people, so the GBA Japanese only one Climax has a fully featured F-Zero game with all the slides and whistles of F-Zero. People are afraid of that one; they dodge it. I really like F-Zero though, so that makes me sad. A lot of fighting games are in that list, and Castlevania 1 looks like apparently something no one wants to deal with. They're afraid of what I've got cooking for that one. Most of the other games are in there pretty well.
Yeah, how? So I know you. So I really love fighting games. So you have. I know I've seen Street Fighter there, and the Mortal Kombat, and World Heroes 2. What are some other fighting games that people don't choose as much that are on the?
Primal Rage, Shaq Fu.
Okay. Yeah,
Um,
no, that makes sense.
Mortal Kombat 2 is in there. I don't have the first one. It's pretty lousy. But 2 is in there, and I don't think that gets picked very much. Gundam Wing Endless Duel is good, but it's not something everybody knows how to play. My challenges list, we decided to make public at this point. It's too big for people to cheat. It used to be private, but you can
Okay.
find it in my pins somewhere. You can see a database of the gist of what every challenge is and which games there are in there. We used to hide it because people could have trained on the like 30 or 40 games we had, and I also didn't want anyone copying all my work and making their own show.
Yeah.
But that's less of a concern for me now. Honestly, at this point, would like to see it. Good luck. It's a little too elaborate, I think, for me to care. No one's going to be able to make a direct copy of what I've done here. It's kind of a pain to run. It's a lot of there's a lot of work. It's like it's not worth the effort for most people, I think, to do a copy, even if they had the means, which you could do if you had a big audience and content thrown in and stuff. It's just so much work for what it is. I've already done all the work, so I'm just reaping the benefits now.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's easy for me to just add even more stuff to it. Not just more content, more events. I can just throw in a new event in, and it's not really that big of a deal.
Yeah. Are there any new events coming this year?
Yeah, probably. Snailser stuff is the easiest thing for me to expand. When we decided to make the Snailser thing, it was a big deal because not only did it add this whole element of shock that needs to be there, really, for this to make for it to be a lasting fun thing. It kind of needed that, but I didn't want just a wheel with one challenge on it, so it came down and there were 12 icons that were unlabeled. I had to make each one of those pretty much. I think there were a couple that I've cut that kind of sucked. Um, I cut one drawing event from the main show too, but mostly the content that's on there is similar to what it is now. So I had to come up with icons and theming and animations and names, logos for all those events all at once, so that the wheel was ready. Because it is a wheel, it's random. I can't even control what it lands on. So when it hits something, I have to have something there. I can't just have a fake tile. So I had to have a whole wheel of games ready for that when it was ready to go. So those are the events I'd be adding to, I think. I like to not let anyone know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
The goof shows, I didn't tell my co-host I was doing them when they happened. She does an incredible job rolling with it at this point. So good that you might think I told her, but I never tell her what I'm doing. She never knows what's going on. She just sees something goofy happen and she's like, I see.
This is mostly like we're talking about design and stuff, so it hasn't really come up. But I feel like I should say it. Like Emily is such a critical part of like at least my enjoyment of the show. Like the sort of like playfully adversarial tone that she adds is so it's such a good it's such a good element. It's such a beautiful thing.
Yeah, she does a great job, and she's been here pretty much the whole time.
Also, I'm not gonna lie, I know this is probably shallow or whatever, but like when I first heard about the show, and I did find out about the show because it went on Giant Bomb, because I'd been a Giant Bomb subscriber at the time. The thing that hooked me was like, oh, there's a trans person like on the show.
Sure.
And I hate to be like a sucker for representation like that. I hate to be so manipulable, but I was just like, yeah, immediately I feel like, okay, this is a thing where I'm welcome.
Yeah, I mean, that's a intentional space creation is something I had made, but it wasn't like I sought that out. That just seemed to happen on its own, but that's fine. I always had had that as a policy. The community, anybody could play, and if they had a problem with that, then they couldn't. So I just rolled with that. It wasn't anything I sought after. Anything. I brought Emily in because she had a great voice, and she had a great character, and was one of my friends, and brought a lot of element to it that I wanted. And anyone in my pit crew team who wants to sub in, same thing really. No one's as good as Emily, but they do a good job, and they know the show pretty well. So if she can't make it, they step in for her. Author Blues, Ty Tuesday are good examples of people who, I mean, Ty Tuesday comes and does it live for me on the live panels as well with Emily. They've been here since the beginning.
But like, so a question related to this community. So like, you have this group of people who come on fairly frequently, and in that group of people, you have people who are sort of like there's a fair amount of people who are sort of like related to the indie games industry, right? Like Hempuli's been on a couple of times. You have like artists and stuff like that come on, and then you also have like dedicated Let's Players and speedrunners. How much additional difficulty does that sort of disparity create in balancing like where you want the difficulty level for your challenges? Because there are some people who are just like fucking phenomenal, maybe the best in the world at these kinds of games, and then other people where their main thing is not really playing the games at all.
I balanced it around the ladder, and the speedrunners winning is fun for everybody. Everybody likes to see my challenges get crushed into dust. I always have to say this is not as easy as it looks. Like this guy running through with one hand behind his back with no buttons is winning Mega Man and no damage. The difference between, say, Giant Bomb and GDQ is a big one those were journalists largely and people who game devs and stuff. They are familiar with these games, but they aren't speedrunners.
Mhm.
So they had a lot of trouble with a lot of the challenges. Compared to GDQ, where I expect to lose when somebody goes on the test your Smight thing and plays against me. The audience loves that, by the way. Loves to see me lose. I can't beat. I knew when Mega Man X showed up and Reeves was my opponent. I personally watched him clip through the wall and shoot spark mandrels out of his gun. I don't know anything about what's going on against a player like that. And Donkey Kong Country, we had to play, and he is so good at that game. Never had a chance. And I would expect him to beat every challenge in that category, no problem, unless I had something really funny and weird. And that's the same for all of the challenges. If they are versed in the game, they should be able to beat them. That's how it's actually balanced. Is if you're really good at this game, you shouldn't have any trouble with the level 5 ones. I've gone through them just as like a sub incentive kind of thing once in a while. I've just randomly pulled challenges off my show and went through the like level 5 challenges. I'm not. I like to think I'm pretty good at these games, but I'm not as versed in the whole library that I am as the ones that I pick for the Test Your Smite thing. And even I can still get pretty much 100% success rate on the ones because I helped make the challenges, so I played through them. I played through like Castlevania 1 and stuff, so I can get them. I fail them here and there, but and they are really hard sometimes. But the only ones that are really unfair are the ones on the Snailser wheel. And even those ones, for somebody who played like Super Ghouls and Ghosts, they would just kill the final boss. They wouldn't lose to that.
Yeah, because it's not like the Snailser challenges are like playing the game in some kind of strange way under some additional condition. It's like just beat the boss, just beat the level
Usually,
that is in the game.
if I can make it awful, Mega Man X has the ability to rebind your buttons for some reason, so I can put jump on select and stuff and send them after something in that, and that's pretty rough. So I'll do that in game if I am able to. But yeah, most of the time it is just here's the hardest part of the game by far. Can you do this with no warm up? Like that's not really fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you certainly see people beat those when Amabel wanted to source but the points refused to change thing for her video essay. We had to go back a while because the last few episodes that had been posted had people beating the Snailmageddon challenges.
Yeah, the Mario Kart one is one of the ones that gets beaten sometimes. It's just can you do one lap without touching anybody because they'll flatten you.
That is a fun challenge though. The ones where you have like broken the rules of the game in some way like that, I think are really entertaining.
I can tell you the video I'm going to make eventually when I'm not lazy anymore. I don't have a crunch on me, so I'm not feeling the pressure to make it, just like I was saying before. I've been working on this video for like 6 years. It's the rules, a video for the whole show, and then another video on the design. We haven't really talked about that a lot of just the general overview of the whole show and what has worked and what hasn't.
Yeah, so like what are some examples of some things that like didn't work?
If you go to what I was calling for some reason Alpha instead of episode 1 of this show, I had an art easel that I bought for $80 and I had a big magnet board on it. And I had a hand-drawn map, and that was the map I was using with no prizes. It was exactly like the Nick Arcade map, just a big 20-grid map with the player would move. I think I had drawn Rocksteady's face or something, and I had moved him with magnets, and the camera would unfocus and then refocus while I stood up to do that. And it took me a whole episode to realize that should just be digital. I can just click, and I don't have to stand up, mess up my camera, use a camera at all, actually. It's a ridiculous concept. Stopping the players from placing bets was another one. Things like that just didn't make any sense at all for the format got thrown out. And I had some trivia changes pretty early on. We had it like going in 4 categories from easy, medium, hard, and super hard. And then we added that second event of
The Blitz.
yeah, I might have added that after seeing John's, I'm not sure, panel. Somebody might have had that kind of thing, and then I thought that's not a bad idea. I might do something like that. Uh, I realized that nobody would ever pick the hard trivia for 20 points. They always pick the easy fives over and over again or whatever. So our database has a difficulty rating of 1 to 4, but we actually use 1 and 3 now as 2 numbers. It's either easy or hard. And if it's easy, we don't use it in the big board at all. We use it for the fast ones. And if it's hard, we use it on the big board for 12 that you pick the game that you know. And that works way better. That's all considered to be hard trivia. It was so hard to get people to understand what I was even looking for that. When submitting trivia, they would send trivia all over the place. They still kind of do, even when it's just, is this easy or hard? They still don't really get it. So I had to make it as streamlined as I could. Since I did want at least 2 categories, it's either ridiculously, you could know this just by seeing someone else play the game at all, or just know a vague thing about it. And then this other one's like, what's this Prism specs do in Chrono Trigger? Like high level information. Big change for trivia. That was and then sound test was one that went through 20 rule changes because no one was getting anything right. I had it just guess the series eventually. Just like no one would get anything right with it. I couldn't get them to get it no matter what. And I determined that the content was part of the problem too. I needed to pick the easiest damn songs I could find. There's not an easy enough song. I could play Sans Undertale theme and they'd still miss it. I have to get something easy. I have to get a playlist ready of just the easiest. This is baby music stuff that I would expect someone who knows video games to get all 10 of them, and they still wouldn't, just because there's so many games, and it's really hard to identify music. I'm not one to talk. Ty Tuesday was doing his own sound test show, and I failed it big time. I was the worst one of the 3 playing. He played the PlayStation 2 ambience noise. I couldn't get. I definitely should not have missed that.
Yeah, well, I mean,
screen
like,
crap.
Devoid of context, and especially, like, I don't know to what degree you have, like, nerves when you're in a situation like that, but, like, I imagine that plays into some extent. Like, it's harder than you would think.
Yeah, these are all things that I had designed pretty just assumingly are they going to be good and janky probably because I don't know what I'm doing for design, but I figured it would be good. But then when I saw in practice that a month would go by and everyone missed every single one of these, and then I have the stats guy telling me which challenges can't be won at all, but ever they just can't win them. Bubsy is on the list, I think, for games that no one wins, everyone tries. You can check the stats if you want to. They're open as well. This is all pinned in my Discord if you wanted to see the stats of any player or any game even. That's all in there. And it's information that is very useful for designing with because it's damning for some of the challenges.
Yeah. Now with the sound test with the backwards one on the Snailser wheel, so do that just pull from the same pool as the sound test, or do you choose things that to play backwards specifically? Like how curated is the Snailser version of that?
I've got a playlist that then I can I have a plugin that lets me just pick a song and play it backwards on the fly for Foobar, which was the technology that we were using changed a lot, and changing. I loved Winamp. I tried to stick with it for as long as I could, but this show wouldn't let me do that. Finally had a reason to switch to Foobar and use actual modern things. I guess modern would just be Spotify, but like they can't use that obviously, so Foobar is the answer for me, and things like that. BizHawk lets me play a bunch of games of different consoles at once, so that's another mandatory switch up. And we have a big problem with tech every once in a while where we want to do a big update for that, and then every single save we have is broken when we do that. We have to remake them. We have to go through every game again.
Oh, jeez.
It'll be the 3rd time we have to do that maybe coming up here soon because we can't just convert them. So we're just stuck on this old version. Hopefully there's nothing big missing. It's just, it's not a huge problem, I guess, as long as I don't care about the update, but I do. Sometimes the update is It makes the games run better. Consoles were hard for people to run sometimes. Don't want to see the player have latency. I have to worry about their bandwidth already. I don't want to have to worry about their PC stats.
Yeah. This is actually something that's really interesting about your show. And that, like, I don't know that I've ever seen another game show have to deal with, because even game shows that are remote, it's a lot of stuff like trivia and whatever, and like people can just tune in with a webcam. But for your show, they need to be able to feed you a stream. They need to be able to play these games. Like, I haven't looked into the process. Like, you give them a software package, presumably of some kind, right? Are they like connecting? They're not playing the games remotely. Like, they're playing the games locally and streaming the footage to you.
I have streamlined it for them. I have given them some stuff, and it's hard to do for people who aren't tech savvy, so I had to make it very streamlined. And at this point, I think we've achieved it. I hear it a lot, especially from people who came in back in the old days where it was a way harder process to set up. We had a little video, and you'd have to do this a bunch of work. But now it should be run this to play, and it connects to OBS. It chooses the feed for you, and then you hit start when I tell you to, and you should be good. All you have to do is switch between drawing or playing. And even that can be automated to a degree. Like, OBS can tell if you've focused a window for drawing, and it should switch. Like, we can do that, and we can get everything up until just load it and play it, and that's all they should have to do. I needed it to be that simple because we started bringing in people who aren't even gaming or streamers.
Yeah. So that's first of all, that's very technically impressive. But are there ideas that you've had that you wanted to pursue that you couldn't because you just couldn't make like the complicated tech behind them work?
There's a lot of things like that. Like, we have for the Quizzler thing that was a very sophisticated, just Quizzler by itself with the Jeopardy fellas. We had our own buzzer room where you could buzz in and stop the clock and answer. I can't do that without super familiar people. More recently, it's been fixed, but two or 3 years ago, I guess, getting audio at all from the game feed was impossibly hard task for anyone who wasn't a mixing DJ. If you didn't have a soundboard, either digitally or I have a mixer here, a physical mixer. If you didn't have that, or if you weren't running like virtual audio cables,
Yeah.
sound mixing is an incredible thing for people to wrap their head around. And I can now just tell OBS to just grab this application's audio for me. So now, no matter how amateur they are, I can do it on my end. I don't really need them to do anything. They just need to not touch anything. They just need to start, and I've got it. So we've solved that problem, but that was a big one. And it's a fatal one, honestly. People come in who didn't see the show before, and they didn't understand why they couldn't hear any of the music from the game. I would just play my own music over it. That's what I do when the players, for some reason, aren't sending audio through. That's my default response.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and like multi-source audio stuff is like quietly the most complicated and most difficult part of streaming. That's the thing I feel like people don't talk about a lot. But yeah, I have like a nightmare virtual audio cable set up from a couple of years ago. The tech, like you say, the tech has advanced and things are a little better now, but that was something I definitely spent a lot of hours struggling with personally.
OBS didn't have a solution for that for me for years. It's just nothing. And then eventually we could include the plugin, and now I don't even need the plugin. It's built in. I can just grab it. I use my own custom build of OBS anyway, so we can do almost anything we want. That's probably the worst one. But there are some limitations for games that I can't really do. On the special shows like Halloween and stuff, when I have some handpicked guests, I can get away with PlayStation games and things that are harder to deal with.
Yeah.
People who understand how to play that stuff better.
The show has sort of like a in terms of the games that get played as challenges, there's sort of like a hard date cutoff, right? Like with certain generations. Is that because you don't necessarily trust that any random guest is going to be able to run the emulation of the later games? Or is there some other technical limitation there?
I think that it's going to be hard to set up controllers for N64, for example.
Oh,
and
sure.
It's kind of big and confusing. And it's just another system. We don't really... It's just going to be really hard to deal with. To demonstrate, the resolution is going to be different. That's something that most of these old systems have in common. Is they're square 4x3, or they're close. They're not all that, but they're close. Like the Genesis isn't really exactly that, and the GBA is definitely not that, but it's really close. It's close enough that I can just make it fit, just make it work. But I have lost the ability to do like the super scope and some other things like that. And so we had some like Mario Paint and Battle Clash and stuff like that at one point we can't really do. And that's also because I switched to the simpler software to use, and there were a couple sacrifices to do that. It all in all has been a way better choice than running 5 emulators. But SNES 9X had the super scope, so we had Battle Clash, and I miss it.
This has been really fascinating, especially the kind of technical aspects, which I wouldn't like. Obviously, it's obvious that there are a lot of technical aspects, but I wouldn't have thought to ask about those as much because that's not like my background. So I really appreciate you being on this with me and asking these questions.
That was something Giant Bomb's fans had asked me about right away because they recognized that this doesn't make any sense. How's this even working? As a technical kind of problem, how do you have 5 feeds running like that anyway in the first place? It's so I have a server that takes those feeds in. That's my own thing on the side, and that's what they send the stream to. And I grab their audio and stuff, and it's got a very small delay. Obviously, it's not like a Discord screen share or something. It needs to be something more stable than that, something that can be plugged on and left alone, and that can capture. So we have all this thing going on, and like I said at the start of this, that was already established before I even started my show. So that was the hardest, most technical aspect of it, and it was already done. So with that not even being a concern for me, I'm just like, yeah, I'll just use the race box. I've been using that to play Sonic with my boys. We're just gonna plug it in and they're going to use it to play the rest of this. That was not even a problem, but that is the biggest problem.
Yeah, absolutely. I figured it had to be some kind of ingest server sort of thing. It's really interesting to hear that it was a problem that you had already solved for different reasons, so that it just wasn't a thing you had to figure out. That makes a huge amount of sense for like the genesis of the show.
That was just an evolution of the I honestly thought hosting races was fun, but kind of boring after a while. Like I just sit there for 2 hours and commentate over them, and I got tired of that real quick. So I just immediately moved over to this. I remember teasing my audience. I was doing some big project, and I was showing them little bits of this, but it was exciting to move into this and start doing it every week. I've never really got tired of it. It's just sometimes I'm wiped out just getting on, but at the end of the day, I only have to be on the actual live part of the show for an hour. I do a lot of work offline before the show starts. Just general content management, not specifically for any one show, but just generally adding questions, checking trivia, adding all that other stuff, and making new challenges is a lot of work. But none of it needs. I could probably just run what I have in perpetuity here for a while, a couple years worth of stuff probably before it got really old.
Do you have, just out of curiosity, do you have like much of a technical background?
I have a bachelor's in IT and a minor in communications.
Okay.
And I have a forensics degree for some reason, associates, but don't really use that one.
Yeah, we all end up in. I have 3/4 of an English bachelor's, and I just like, what am I doing with this?
I figure that if you're doing game design work, that I have some things to say about the game design for a live show.
Yeah.
I hesitate to call myself a game designer, but I know that I am at some point because I do design a lot of this stuff and I try to balance it around it. I don't like it when people tell me that the show is just like a chaotic random mess because I didn't want it to be. I put some real thought into like how much points thing. I like the chaotic fun part of it. I like that. That's fine. That's what it was supposed to be. But like to think that it's not fair, it is a little bit though. Because Proton John has a win record of like 40-2. Like there's a reason he's winning all the time. It's because he's unstoppably good at the games that are showing up. And no matter how many times I screw him, he might get close to losing, but at the end of the day, he's still Proton John, and you're not, and you're gonna beat him. That's what's going on with that. So that's because there is some careful consideration to the weight of things in there.
Yeah, yeah. There's definitely a lot of skill involved, and the game rewards that. In the board games I design, a lot of them have a fair amount of randomness or chaos, but generally, if two players of different skill levels play the same game 10 times, most of those victories are going to go to the player who's more heavily skilled. So it's not, you know, you want the variety and the texture that comes from some noise in the system. But that's not the same thing as the thing being truly chaotic or random. And I definitely have had my own work mischaracterized that way, and I understand how that would make someone feel.
Yeah. Well, it's been a long time of tweaking it, and sometimes I realize that some of the decisions I made were stupid, like not letting the audience guess. It's just bad for my community. It resulted in so many timeouts. It probably has hurt my growth. And then there's some decisions about like the rules and stuff. Like it took me a long time to realize that the game points are not high enough and it's undervalued. So I just swoop around. I don't have a log, unfortunately. I wish I did, of the kind of changes I made to the rules over the years. I tried to start keeping one, and I'm really bad at that. Like I kind of just decide one day that I'm no longer going to, like if they hit feeling sad out the doubler, I'm not going to take the doubler away if they win. Like that's a rule that I just decided is stupid and mean for no reason to take away their prize. So I decided to stop doing that one day. Like I have rule changes like that just I
Yeah.
keep.
Actually, that's something I really appreciate, because I definitely remember there being specific challenges, like we're in the middle of the gaming challenge, like there's a condition, and you're like, you know what, I don't like that. We're not just do it for this length of time or whatever. And like being able to adapt that on the fly, I think is I wish I could do that with the board games after they've come out.
Yeah.
You know.
It's
Yeah.
a nice digital patch note.
Yeah, like so like we're both pretty immersed in the board game space, although obviously Amabel in a very different way than I am, because she's professional and she's on the both design and publishing end of it. But I play a lot of board games, I play a lot of video games, I'm into these spaces, and it's really fascinating the differences with this thing that you do that is this combination of like hosting and fucking like live timed game design with an audience, where like you have to think in such a different way about your incentive structures, especially because, like, broadly speaking, for most kinds of games the audience is the player, but for your game the audience and the player are different bodies, and
Right.
they need to be incentivized differently because they are of different values to you. I just think the whole thing is absolutely fascinating.
You just reminded me of a thing I meant to say. Incentives is the word. For designing around players who are too good, instead of the players who are barely able to beat these challenges. That's what the bonuses are supposed to be for. They're supposed to be these ridiculous, unbelievably tight tasks. That's that plus 10 points. If you're smoking this game, there's supposed to be a bonus on every challenge that is just like, if this challenge was made for an easier time, like just, hey, can you beat Mario World 1.5 or 1.4 or whatever, and the other one is going to be do it in 10 seconds or whatever. Like just fly through there, don't get hit a single time. That's the idea there, is to give the good players something to do,
Okay, that's interesting.
to show off.
Yeah, that's a way of like solving the problem of the huge disparity in the sort of groups that you're pulling from as players.
Yeah, I try to make those bonuses grueling. They're supposed to be really hard for plus 10 points. It's supposed to be as hard as I can do. Like I measure, if it took me 90 seconds to do a thing, the challenge is probably 2 minutes, and the bonus is probably 90 seconds. Like it probably is right on where I'm at, probably where it's supposed to be.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Yeah, and it's nice to give players an opportunity to style a bit.
Yeah, some of them are very well versed in these games, so they are better than me, and they can do it just fine. And they get something for it, at least. They have something that they know they can do it, and I tell them in advance what it is. I think a good one is like if your goal is to make it to the door of like Shadow Man and Mega Man 3, beating him is a nightmare, but just to be able to do that is a big fun show off for a champ who can actually read him that well. Because I don't know I could.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then there's a lot of audience value then in getting a player to do like to style on the game in that way.
Yeah, because they'll make it there fast, and then they'll just be sitting there, and then it's over.
Do you? I'm sorry, I realize we're taking up a lot of your time. Like things just keep coming to me. Do you have any concerns at all with like growth and stuff? Like, Amabel has started to attract a little bit sort of like wider world attention recently because of a couple of weird things that happened.
Nice.
And you know, she got like she's being interviewed by people who are like very outside of this space and sort of coming, you know, do you worry at all that if you started to get attention kind of outside of your outside of like the Twitch viewer pool and stuff, that you might have any problems with, because I know a lot of the law around emulation and stuff is very gray. Do you worry that you might have trouble if you grew to a certain size and the people who like own the IP for the games or the music or whatever became aware of the thing, that there might be issues?
I was worried about that when I first started. I kept it insular. I didn't really care about growing back then. This is my full-time job now, so I definitely do, and I need the growth. But there's a point where I don't care about it so much anymore, and it's the point where I can pay my bills. I don't think I'm worried about that these days very much, but I would cut any content I needed to if that was the case. Like if they didn't want me running certain things,
Yeah,
it would
like,
suck. But I can easily trim out whatever I have to. It's modifiable.
yeah, it does seem like there's sort of like a comfortable like detente at the moment where like nobody wants to test any of the legislation, and it's just like we all recognize that, you know, in a way we're all feeding into each other's business here, right?
I don't want to mess with it at all. And yeah, if I had to, I would just cut it, get out of the way. I don't think anyone would even notice if I had just like if Bubsy's trademark hit hard or something. If I just cut him, I don't think any particular game series, like even if it were like Sonic or something, I don't think anyone would really notice on my show. It wouldn't. They might be like, "Where's Sonic?" after like a year, but like there's enough content that I can drop a lot and still roll with it, and I could even just use indie projects if I really wanted to.
I don't know. You might. I understand what you're saying, but with Bubsy as an example, you might have picked the one that I think people would notice.
Yeah, if you look really close on the TVs, his little reflection is there.
Yeah,
Very
there's a couple of subtle references to Bubsy throughout the show usually.
It's like 1% opacity Bubsy's hiding on the TV screens.
But like, yeah, there was that period where Nintendo was being like really, really harsh with people streaming certain kinds of Nintendo content.
I think they were after distributors more, and that's obviously not me. But yeah, I get that concern. That's always been a concern with the retro community. Like if they might just not like ROM hacking of like Mario 64, I think was a big one. They didn't like that one being modded to be opened up, and that sucks because there's a lot of cool mods. But that's not really me, so I feel like I'm not really with that at all anyway.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much for your time, and
Sure, it was fun.
Yeah.
Love to yap about my show.
Okay, and if we're wrapping up, I didn't want to lead with this because I felt it would be unprofessional. But like, oh, holy shit, I'm such a big fan. Like, Arcade Pit is so fucking rad. I absolutely love it. I have watched probably every episode that's on YouTube at this point.
I better get some more up there.
Yeah, it's just
YouTube's doing a good thing where it doesn't automatically update the playlist, so I probably have some missing ones. I have to just search my channel for the words Arcade Pit and add them manually. Sometimes I do that like every couple months.
Yeah, I've been doing Let's Plays on YouTube for like 6 years, and the playlist behavior has changed so many times that it has just like weirdly dropped so many things for me. Yeah, I don't know what's going on. Anyway, sorry, I just wanted to say.
I appreciate that. It's been a long. There's a couple people who've been there from the beginning. I recognize them in the audience, but I think I've lost and regained an entire bunch of viewers at this point for the most part, like 70% probably or more. But a lot of people did come in from Giant Bomb and GDQ recently. I was never very good at pushing my own brand or even caring about it. Like when I was doing it back in the start, I didn't really have any expenses at all, and I had a hard time getting any other kind of job. So I was having more money than I needed, so I was just sitting on it and not really worrying. But I didn't really care. It made it really. It's really nice to not care actually if you're growing or not, because then if anyone gives you any guff, you can be like, whatever. Doesn't matter if you subscribe to me or not. I'm just gonna ban you. You're just a jerk. You're like, it doesn't matter. You don't have to think about anything. I like that freedom. But I have to be a little bit more conscious about things that I'm doing being popular now. Thankfully, Arcade Pit is very, very popular compared to everything else I do. So it's the obvious choice for if I'm doing something that's not on the chopping block. Everything else is.
Yeah.
Like I can't. I want to broadcast Final Fantasy VI's remake, but that's not pulling my numbers, so I have to stop it. I have to do it in the morning or something.
Yeah, this business. I also am making my full income from like my Let's Plays and stuff. This business is a nightmare in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I'm not a big social pusher, so it's really hard for me to tell people to subscribe and stuff, and that number gets pretty low sometimes, and I think it's because I don't even ask. Because usually when I do ask, I suddenly get 1,000 of them real quick. Yeah, I'm not built for sales.
Yeah, me neither.
me neither.
I've never been comfortable doing the self-promotion stuff, and I sort of skate on the fact that like, you know, on YouTube, people who are doing the non-live Let's Play episode thing, it's so ingrained in everybody else to be like, hey, like and subscribe, that I hope the audience is just kind of trained. Because I can't make myself do it. I feel so ridiculous saying it.
Yeah, I have trouble. I don't really push my stuff much. The games. I don't have an advertising budget. It's just word of mouth. And I've just been really phenomenally lucky sometimes, and then sometimes I'm not. And I'm fortunate enough that I'm able to make a living from it. But it's but like I wouldn't know how to actually intentionally grow it. I just do my thing and hope people talk about it.
Yeah, unfortunately, it is such a fan-driven thing because advertiser money isn't really there.
Yeah.
It's kind of unpredictable because of that. I don't really get it. I see other people doing it on content that's lousy to be on a TikTok. It's just, like they do fine, and I don't really get that. But I know I'm the same. I'm like their peer. It sucks to say that because I know that I lose sleep putting work into mine, and they just kind of get on there and do whatever, and it works for them. But I'm not as good at marketing as they are. I think I have to have some content that's really enjoyed, or I can't do it. I need my content to speak for itself because I can't do it. That's why Emily's on my show because I'm bad at that energy.
That makes sense. Yeah, that's very relatable. All right. Well, we'll let you get on with your day. Thank you very much again for this time and for your show, which we enjoy immensely.
Yeah, this has been
Thanks for
really
chatting
cool.
with
Thanks for sitting down with us.
Sure, that was fun. Have a good one.
Bye.
You too.